Name's Benjamin Blander. Yeah, ironic last name, right? Believe me, I've heard it all. Blander than white bread. Blander than elevator music. You name it. Anyway, I'm standing in the kitchen one morning, just trying to slap together a peanut butter sandwich before heading off to the plant. Real glamorous life I lead. 8 years running equipment. Good pay, steady work. Not great, not terrible. Reliable like me. Kathy, my wife of 14 years, is across the table with her coffee cup, and that phone practically fused to her hand. She's in pharmaceutical sales, which basically means she spends half her life convincing doctors to prescribe pills and the other half racking up frequent flyer miles. So, yeah, she's home just enough for me to remember what her voice sounds like. I'm twisting the lid off the peanut butter jar, and she's scrolling away on her phone, eyes glued like it's showing the cure for cancer. Then, without even looking up, she just says, "I want a divorce." Like that, deadpan. No build-up, no dramatic pause. Just boom, over coffee. I froze mid-swipe of peanut butter. "Excuse me?" I asked, thinking maybe I misheard. Maybe she said, "Pass the salt," or "Your zipper's down." "Nope, I want a divorce," she repeats, still scrolling. Wow, I say, knife in hand like I'm about to duel somebody. That's one way to kick off a Monday. Still no eye contact. Just her thumb flicking that phone screen, like she's swiping through a dating app she already downloaded. Now here's the kicker. I wasn't shocked. Not even a little. The last 2 years of our marriage have been like watching paint dry while someone simultaneously scratches a chalkboard. I'm not saying I expected her to blurt it out over Folgers, but if our marriage was a horse, I'd already dug the hole and bought a shovel. So I just said, "Okay, let's do it." That got her attention. Oh, yeah. She finally looked up from her phone then, like I just ruined her big Broadway debut. I swear she had some whole dramatic script plan in her head, me begging, her crying, lots of tissues, and instead, I gave her the world's shortest response. "Wait, you're okay with it?" she asked, blinking. "Sure." I shrugged, spreading peanut butter like nothing happened. Saves us both the trouble of pretending. She squinted at me, clearly annoyed that I wasn't putting on a show. "I thought you'd be upset." "Oh, I am," I said, slapping the bread together, devastated, really. "Look at me. This sandwich is practically soggy with tears." Her mouth opened, then closed. Guess I stole her thunder. She huffed, grabbed her bag, and stomped toward the door. And then she left for work. So I finished making my sandwich. Classic peanut butter and jelly masterpiece, by the way, and headed to the plant. But the whole time I'm running that machine, my brain spinning like the damn conveyor belt. I couldn't stop replaying it. 14 years together. And she drops the D word like she's ordering a latte. I'd had enough of arguing with myself in my head. So I called my brother. He's been through the ringer. Nasty divorce, custody battles, lawyers draining his wallet like vampires of blood drive. If anyone knows the ropes, it's him. Soon as he picks up, I go, "Hey, so Kathy wants a divorce." He lets out this long whistle. "Damn, you good?" "Define good," I said. "I'm eating a peanut butter sandwich in a factory parking lot while contemplating the implosion of my marriage. Living the dream." He chuckled. "Listen, man, first thing you need to do is get a lawyer. Immediately. Don't wait. Don't play nice. You need to know what you're entitled to before she starts assuming you're just going to roll over." "Entitled?" I said. I thought the guy with the smaller paycheck was basically screwed. Not always. Trust me, call a lawyer. Best advice ever, honestly, because here's where things get interesting. See, Kathy makes almost double what I do with her pharmaceutical hustle. She's been stuffing money into her retirement accounts like a squirrel hoarding acorns, and her fat commission checks basically paid for the house. Meanwhile, I'm over here proud of myself for finding 2-for-1 deals on frozen pizzas. I always thought divorce worked like high-income spouse equals winner, low-income spouse equals sorry, better luck next life. Turns out, not exactly. My brother gave me the number of this lawyer, Ron Jeremy. Yeah, I know that name. First thing I said was, "Wait, isn't he your adult movie guy?" My brother groaned. "Different dude. This one looks like a hitman, wears black suits, also DJs on weekends." So, I'm hiring John Wick with turntables. Pretty much. And he's good. We set an appointment for the next morning before my shift. Never hired a lawyer before, so I felt weird as hell. Like, do I shake his hand? Or do I just hand over my soul and a checkbook? That night, Kathy comes home acting like nothing happened. No big reveal, no heavy talk, just her usual routine. We make dinner in silence, like we're auditioning for the world's most depressing cooking show. She mentioned some work trip coming up, visiting medical offices up north. Totally casual. Like the whole divorce bomb she dropped earlier was just another item on her to-do list. I want to say, hey, remember this morning when you casually torpedoed our marriage between sips of coffee? But instead, I just shoveled mashed potatoes into my face and nodded. Later, she goes to bed, and I stay up on my laptop, deep diving into divorce law, like I'm cramming for finals. Retirement accounts, length of marriage, earning capacity. It's a whole jungle of legal jargon. The more I read, the more I realized Kathy had absolutely no idea what she was walking into. 14 years together, her cushy salary, my steady gig, all could actually work in my favor. She seemed to think she could just swan dive out of this marriage, walk away squeaky clean, and not feel a dent in her wallet. Cute idea. But after a few hours of late-night Googling divorce law, like a paranoid insomniac, I knew she was about to get a very expensive education in modern marriage liquidation. I barely slept. I kept reading case studies on my phone until about 2 a.m. You know you've hit rock bottom when you're scrolling through divorce precedents instead of YouTube fails. I finally crashed, then dragged myself out of bed at 6 o'clock, running on coffee fumes in spite. It was 6:30 a.m., and I had to be at work by 9 o'clock. So yeah, timing was tight. Kathy had already left for work, blissfully unaware her casual little divorce was about to become a contact sport. The lawyer's office was in one of those glass towers downtown, the kind that screams, "You can't afford rent here." I shuffled in wearing my work clothes, steel-toed boots, grease-stained jeans, feeling like the janitor who took a wrong turn. The receptionist, though, was all smiles. "Mr. Blander, Ron will see you now." And then enter Ron Jeremy. Not that Ron Jeremy. Thank God. This guy looked like if a hitman decided to clean up his act and become a motivational speaker for sad husbands. Sharp black suit, silver tie, perfectly trimmed beard. He stood up, shook my hand with his firm grip, and for 1 second, I swear I heard angelic choir music. He gestured for me to sit. "So, does your wife know you're here?" "Nope," I said. "She's at work, probably charming some doctor into pushing more pills." Ron nodded slowly, leaned back, and gave me this little half-smile. "Good. That's exactly how I like it." And just like that, I knew I was in the right place. He started firing off questions. Finances, length of marriage, who paid what, who earned what. I answered as best I could. Try not to sound like a total idiot. Then I mentioned the big one. She makes almost double what I do. That's when Ron smiled for real. Not like a villain rubbing his hands together, but like a knight seeing a dragon that was finally killable. "Benjamin," he said, leaning forward, "you'd be amazed how many people walk in here, still clinging to the old model of divorce. They think it's always the man writing the checks. That hasn't been true for years. What matters is financial disparity, earning potential, and who can stand on their own 2 feet. "Uh-huh," I said, trying to follow along. He steepled his fingers and gave me this confident look. "Your wife has a stable, high-paying career in pharmaceutical sales. You, on the other hand, have a decent job, but with limited growth potential. Courts look at that. And frankly," he paused, like he was about to knight me with Excalibur, "that works in your favor." Ron leaned back in his chair, crossed one leg over the other, and started laying it all out like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. "Benjamin," he said, voice steady like some courtroom preacher, "you've been married 14 years. That's no short-term fling. The court will likely see you as financially disadvantaged, especially since her income was what built the lifestyle and the assets you two have. You didn't just sit on the couch. You worked. You kept the household running. You supported her career." I blinked. "Wait, Are you telling me folding laundry actually counts for something? Ron gave me this knowing smile, like a knight patting a nervous squire on the shoulder. In the eyes of the law, yes, support isn't just about money. It's about contribution, and you contributed. That's when he dropped the bomb. You may be entitled to alimony. Not for a few months, Benjamin, for years. I just stared at him, jaw hanging like I'd forgotten how it worked. Alimony? For me? You're saying she could end up paying me? Exactly, Ron said, calm as ever. If we establish financial dependence on her income and show how your role supported her career, the court could award you substantial, ongoing support. I had to grip the edge of the chair to keep from falling out of it. The numbers he threw around made my head spin. I'd never seen that much money outside of a Powerball ticket. Then we got into the house. Whose name is on the deed? Ron asked. Both of ours, I said. But, most of the mortgage payments came from her commissions. Ron nodded. That's fine. You may still have a case for keeping it, especially if you can show non-financial value, household management, maintenance, emotional support. I laughed. So, me unclogging the garbage disposal at midnight actually has legal weight. Absolutely, Ron said, dead serious. Don't underestimate it. And then there was her retirement account. Kathy had been maxing out her contributions like a squirrel hoarding nuts while I tossed pennies into mine whenever I could. Ron explained that all of it, her 401k, IRAs, everything, was marital property, subject to division. By the time I left that office, I wasn't just a guy getting divorced anymore. I was a man staring down the barrel of financial security for the first time in his adult life. It was like Ron had handed me a shield and sword and said, "You don't have to lose, Benjamin. You can win." And the best part? Ron wanted to move fast. Kathy probably thinks you'll take whatever she offers and walk away quietly, he said. The longer we wait, the more time she'll have to hide assets or build her own strategy. Speed is your ally here. And suddenly, for the first time since she dropped the D word over coffee, I realized this whole divorce thing might actually work in my favor. Ron leaned across the desk like some kind of divorce general plotting the first strike. We need to move fast, Benjamin. The element of surprise is key. She thinks you're still in shock. Good. Let's keep it that way. I nodded, trying to look serious while my brain was screaming. Holy hell, I'm actually doing this. Then he slid the retainer agreement across the desk, smooth as a blackjack dealer. If you want me in your corner, sign here. I looked at the number and winced. It wasn't pocket change, but then again, neither was my life. I pulled out my debit card tied to my emergency savings account. Figured if this didn't qualify as an emergency, nothing did. House on fire? Flat tire? Nope. Wife just dropped the D word over coffee emergency. Ron smiled as he processed the payment. Good man. I'll have the papers ready within 48 hours. Trust me, she won't see it coming. Walking out of that shiny office building, I almost expected theme music to play, like I should be strutting down the sidewalk while people slow clapped. Instead, I hustled to my car, late for work and reeking of too much cologne from the waiting room. I ended up rolling into the plant about 10 minutes behind schedule, but my supervisor barely looked up from his clipboard. Rough morning, he asked. You could say that. I muttered, pulling on my gloves. Then I spent the entire shift running machines on autopilot, while my brain spun faster than the conveyor belt. My co-workers kept giving me side-eye like I'd seen a ghost. You good, Ben? One of them finally asked. Yeah, I said flatly, just thinking about legal stuff. Which, let's be honest, is the fastest way to shut down a conversation on the factory floor. Around lunch, Kathy called. I stepped outside, sandwich in hand, and answered. Hey, she said, casual as ever. Just letting you know I'm leaving for my work trip this afternoon. Should be gone 5 days. A lot of doctors' offices to head up north. Sounds busy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, she replied. Don't wait up. Then she hung up like it was any other Wednesday. Perfect timing, really. 5 whole days without her in the house meant I could start moving chess pieces without her hovering around, asking questions, or noticing my late-night laptop research marathons. That evening, I called my brother to give him the update. So, turns out I might be getting alimony. He nearly choked on the other end. You? Alimony? Yep. Ron says if we play it right, she'll be the one writing me checks. Unbelievable, he muttered. My lawyer never even brought that up when I split with Carla. She made more than I did too, but he just rushed me out. She kept the house, most of the savings. I walked away with a futon and a coffee maker. I shook my head. Not happening to me. If Kathy wants this divorce, fine, but she's not walking away without paying for it. Big time. And I meant it. The 5 days she was gone, honestly, they were probably the most productive week of my life. Ron had the paperwork ready, right on schedule. The guy didn't mess around. 48 hours, just like he promised. When I walked back into his office, it felt less like a law firm and more like a command center. He had files, spreadsheets, legal pads. It looked like he was planning a military campaign. We spent hours combing through every detail of our finances. And let me tell you, I learned more about my own marriage in that one afternoon than I had in the last decade. Turns out I've been way too passive about money. Kathy handled the bills, the accounts, all of it. I just clocked in, collected my paycheck, and assumed we were fine. Apparently, fine meant I had no clue how much she was actually making or where half it was going. Ron tapped his pen against a stack of papers. Her base salary is around $90,000 a year. Add bonuses. She's probably closer to six figures some years. I blinked. 6 figures? Are you kidding me? I'm over here excited when my overtime check covers the cable bill. He smirked. Meanwhile, your income tops at around $50,000 on a good year. That's less than 2/3 of hers. Over 14 years, that disparity builds up. And courts care about disparity. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. So, me being broke is actually an asset? Exactly, Ron said. He pointed at the house paperwork. This house. Her income paid for most of it. Daily living expenses? Same story. Retirement accounts? She's been maxing out for years. All of that shows financial dependence. Financial dependence. He paused for effect, looking at me like a professor who just revealed the meaning of life. Works in your favor. I couldn't help but laugh. So basically, being clueless and underpaid is finally paying off. Ron didn't even crack a smile. Legally, yes. While Kathy was off charming doctors up north, Ron filed the initial paperwork. Not to be sneaky, as he put it, but to establish position. Strike first, ask questions later. When she gets back from her trip, Ron explained, she'll be served, and it won't be the divorce she thought she was getting. It'll be the divorce you're asking for. And what exactly am I asking for? I asked, half afraid to hear the answer. He leaned forward, eyes practically glowing. Spousal support, 10 years. 10 years. I almost choked. As in a decade? Yes, and not token money. Enough to maintain the lifestyle you became accustomed to during this marriage. That's the legal phrasing. He flipped to another page and tapped it. We're asking for $900 a month. Out of her net income, not gross. That's a substantial chunk of what she actually takes home. I whistled. She's going to lose her mind. Ron shrugged. That's not your problem. That's the law. And then we hit the big one. Her retirement account. Ron's eyes narrowed like he'd just spotted buried treasure. She's been maxing her contributions for years, he said. You, on the other hand, barely contributed. That's fine, because everything she saved during the marriage counts as marital property. We're going after 40%. I rubbed my forehead. 40% of everything she's been squirreling away? Ron nodded. That alone will be a massive hit to her financial security. But the real kicker was the house. Instead of selling it and splitting the proceeds, Ron and I were asking for me to keep it outright. He explained it clearly. Kathy's income may have paid for mortgage and upgrades, but I had maintained it, cared for it, made it into a home for over a decade. That counted as equity too, non-financial contributions that courts absolutely recognized. On top of that, forcing me out of my established residence would create a hardship, and spousal support was designed to prevent that. When we put all the numbers together, the reality was stark. Kathy stood to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, Way more than she ever thought this divorce would cost her. Ron was blunt. She'll fight it at first. Most people do when they see numbers like this. But if her attorney has any sense, they'll tell her to settle. Because if we take this to court, a judge might award you even more. That thought stayed with me. For the first time since this all began, I felt like I had leverage, real leverage. Kathy came back from her work trip that Friday afternoon. She looked relaxed, almost glowing, rolling her suitcase into the entryway like nothing had changed. She probably figured she had 5 days to start sketching out her shiny new post-divorce life. We sat down at dinner together, as usual. The normalcy of it all felt surreal. She poured herself a glass of wine, told me about her flights, the new medical offices she had toured, and some potential clients she was excited about. She smiled, gesturing with her fork as if everything in our world was perfectly fine, as if this divorce was just some minor administrative detail. Paperwork to be signed and forgotten. I nodded in all the right places. Even asked her a question or two. "So these clients," I said, spearing a piece of chicken, "you think they'll sign on?" "Very likely," she replied, smiling. They seemed impressed. It's good for firm. I just smiled back, quiet, giving her nothing. I did not breathe a word about the paperwork, about Ron, about the counterproposal we were preparing to drop in her lap. I let her think I was just going along with whatever she had in mind. The papers were scheduled to be served the following Monday morning at her office. Ron said it was better to do it at her workplace rather than at home. More official, less chance for drama or confrontation. She would probably call me right after it happened, but I was prepared for that. I had my talking points ready, knew exactly what I was and wasn't going to discuss with her. The bottom line was simple. I got the call from Ron around 10:30 Monday morning. Papers had been served at her office, right in front of her co-workers. The process server said she was stunned when she saw what was in the envelope. My phone started ringing about 20 minutes later. I was running equipment at work, so I let it go to voicemail. She called back 3 more times before lunch. Finally, I picked up when she called during my break. "You son of a bitch!" she snapped the second I answered. Her voice was shaking, a mix of panic and rage. "What the hell is this? Are you out of your mind asking for this much money? My retirement? You think you deserve my retirement." I took a breath, kept my tone steady, just like Ron had told me. "Kathy, this isn't about what I think. This is what the law entitles me to after 14 years of marriage." "The law? Don't quote the damn law at me," she shot back. "You didn't earn that money." "I did. You don't get to just sit around and then demand half of everything I work for." I let her rant, then said evenly, "You benefited from my support of your career. Every late night, every weekend you were gone. Every time I held things together at home so you could keep climbing. I gave up plenty to make sure you could succeed. That doesn't mean you get to bleed me dry now," she practically shouted, her words clipped and desperate. I didn't flinch. "It means that now I'm entitled to benefit from the financial security you've built." She kept repeating herself, her voice breaking between anger and desperation. "This isn't what I wanted, Ben. I just want a clean break, a simple divorce. You take your things, I take mine, and we move on." I bit down hard and kept my tone even. "You should have thought about that before you blew up our marriage, Kathy. You don't get to decide the rules now that it's inconvenient for you." Silence. Just her breathing heavy on the other end of the line before she snapped back. "This is insane. You don't even need that kind of money. Why are you trying to punish me?" I didn't take the bait. Ron had drilled it into me. Stick to the facts. Keep it businesslike. This isn't about punishment. It's about what the law says after 14 years of marriage. You built your career because I supported you, and now I'm entitled to share in the financial security you've built. That was the last straw. She cursed under her breath, said something about how unfair the whole system was, then hung up on me. The call barely lasted 10 minutes. I sat there, phone still in my hand, letting the anger drain off. Ron had told me this was going to happen, almost word for word. "They'll go through the stages," he said. "Denial, anger, bargaining. It's textbook, Ben. But eventually their own attorneys will explain reality to them." Sure enough, a week later I got word she had hired some big-name attorney out of the city, the type who probably billed $200 just to pick up her calls. I admit for a second I felt a twinge of panic. How was I supposed to fight someone like that? But when I told Ron, he just smiled, almost amused. "These fancy lawyers," he said, "they actually make my job easier. They know the law, and they're not going to waste time on unwinnable battles. Trust me." And he was right. For about 6 weeks, we went back and forth, offer after counteroffer. Her attorney pushed hard to cut down the spousal support, saying 10 years was excessive. Ron wouldn't budge. He hammered home the disparity in income, reminded them of the lifestyle I had grown accustomed to, the one she could easily afford to maintain. He didn't flinch. Then they shifted tactics, trying to chip away at the retirement. They argued I should only get a smaller percentage of her retirement. Ron countered with evidence of how much her career had benefited from my support during the marriage. He laid it out clearly. Every year she was climbing the ladder, I was the one holding the fort at home. I cooked. I kept the house in order. I managed a daily grind so she could take those last-minute flights and put in long hours. All of that has value, Ron said firmly during one of our meetings. And the court knows it. Judges see through the argument that income alone tells the story. I nodded, though I still felt uneasy. She's not going to see it that way. To her, the paycheck means ownership. "That's why we don't deal in feelings," Ron replied, adjusting his glasses. "We deal in the law, and the law recognizes contribution in all forms." But the real battleground ended up being the house. Her lawyer pressed hard, saying because her income had paid the mortgage, she should keep it, or at the very least, force me to sell so we could split the proceeds. I remember sitting in Ron's office, gripping the armrest of my chair, my jaw tight. "She's not taking the house," I said. "That's not just a building. That's where the kids grew up. That's where I built our lives. I won't walk out of there like some guest who overstayed his welcome." Ron gave me a calm nod. "And you won't. We got documentation of every improvement you've made, the deck, the landscaping, even the roof repairs. Maintenance and sweat equity matter. You made it into a family home, and we'll argue that displacing you would not only be unfair, it would create additional hardship." He leaned forward, tapping his pen against his notepad. "If they push this to court, the judge may turn around and order her to pay you more in spousal support just to cover housing costs. It's better for everyone if you stay put." The negotiations dragged on, letter after letter, call after call. Finally, her high-priced lawyer said almost exactly what Ron had predicted weeks earlier. Fighting this in court would be risky and expensive, and there was no guarantee of a better outcome. I wasn't there when she signed, but Ron told me it was a Wednesday afternoon in November. The settlement agreement was clear. $900 a month in spousal support for 10 years, 40% of her retirement account balance as of the filing date. And I got the house. She kept her car and most of her personal belongings. When Ron called to tell me it was finalized, I just sat there, phone to my ear, staring at the wall. My voice cracked when I said, "It's really done." "It's done," he confirmed. "Congratulations, Benjamin. You held your ground." I couldn't believe it. This woman, who had so casually asked me for a divorce, as if it were just another errand she needed to cross off her list, was now going to be paying me for the next decade. The settlement had landed in my lap like some twisted reward for surviving the wreckage of our marriage. The retirement money alone was enough to give me a kind of financial security I had never felt before. And keeping the house, that was a cherry on top. A stable roof over my head, no rent, no mortgage, nothing to weigh me down except my own thoughts. When she came back that weekend to pack up her things, the silence in the house was thick. She moved through the rooms quickly, not meeting my eyes, not saying much more than the occasional, "Can you hand me that box?" Or, "Where did I leave my charger?" I remember standing by the doorway of our bedroom as she zipped up the last of her suitcases. "So that's it?" I asked quietly. She didn't turn around. "Yeah, that's it." And that was all. No apology, no second thoughts. Just those flat words and the sound of the zipper. By Sunday night, she was gone. The place felt both empty and strangely peaceful. I think, deep down, the reality of what this divorce was going to cost her had finally sunk in, For once, she wasn't the one walking away with the upper hand. Sometimes, I wonder if she regrets asking for that divorce. But honestly, I don't care anymore. She wanted out of our marriage, and she got exactly what she asked for, just not on the terms she expected. Fast forward about 3 months after the papers were finalized, and I stumbled on something that made the whole story even better. Turns out my ex-wife had been cheating on me. That was the real reason she wanted a divorce. I didn't find this out directly from her, of course. No, I got it from my buddy Larry, who works at the same medical complex where she calls on doctors. We were grabbing a couple of beers after work one night when he leaned across the table, lowering his voice like he was about to spill state secrets. Then he said, "You're not going to believe this. I heard something about your ex." I raised an eyebrow. "What now?" "She already drained me of enough headaches." He shook his head. "No, man, she was cheating on you. That's why she wanted the divorce." I just stared at him, waiting for the punchline. But Larry wasn't joking. He went on to tell me he'd been having drinks with some people from the pharmaceutical companies the previous weekend. And her name came up. Apparently, everyone in that industry gossips like crazy, and the story had been making the rounds for months. She'd been having an affair with a doctor she met through her sales calls, a married guy with kids. He worked at one of the big practices she visited regularly. Larry said it had been going on for over a year, maybe longer, and the more I thought about it, the more it all clicked. It made perfect sense now. Why she was traveling so much for work. Why she was acting distant at home. She wasn't just visiting medical offices. No, she was screwing around with this doctor whenever she could. The crazy part? She actually thought she was going to divorce me and then waltz into some serious relationship with the guy, like he was going to leave his wife and kids for her. But here's where it gets good. Larry pulled me aside one night and said, "Ben, you're not going to believe this, that doctor. He never had any intention of leaving his family. He was just using her for sex." I remember leaning back in my chair and laughing. "You're telling me she threw away our marriage because she thought she was the exception, that he was going to play house with her?" Larry shook his head. "Nope. He told her straight up that she misunderstood the situation. He's married. He's staying married. Their little thing was just a fling, and now it's over." I could almost picture the look on her face when reality hit. She'd already set the divorce in motion, already torched her life, and now the guy she thought she was leaving me for was slamming the door in her face. According to Larry, she didn't take it well. She tried calling him, showing up, anything to get his attention, but the man blocked her number, refused to see her again, and even went so far as to switch pharmaceutical suppliers so she couldn't get near his office. I shook my head, half in disbelief, half in amusement. So let me get this straight. She blows up our marriage, loses her family, and ends up empty-handed. Meanwhile, I'm collecting $900 a month for the next 10 years. Larry smirked. That's about the size of it. And to make matters worse, her reputation's trashed. Everybody in her industry knows she crossed the line and slept with a client. Huge ethics violation. I let out a low whistle. So she's toxic now, pretty much. Word is her company's already looking for a way to cut her loose, but they've got to tread carefully with the legal side. That's when I brought up to Ron, my attorney. He leaned forward across his desk and said, "Ben, listen, even if she loses her job, she still owes you the spousal support. We'll enforce it, but if her financial situation crashes hard enough, we may be able to push for a lump sum payout from her retirement. She'd have to cash it out early, pay the penalties, everything. But it would get you your money without having to depend on her monthly payments." He paused, giving me that lawyer's grin. Essentially, she'd bleed her retirement just to avoid the monthly payments. The more I think about it, the more perfect this whole situation becomes. She cheated on me, asked for a divorce, thinking she was upgrading to a better life, and ended up losing everything. Her affair partner, her reputation, her financial security, and possibly her job. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the house that used to be ours, getting paid every month by the woman who betrayed me. I remember when Larry first told me. We were at the bar. The TV was playing some meaningless game in the background, and he leaned in and said quietly, "Ben, you're not going to like this, but you need to know your ex." She's been screwing around with one of the doctors she calls on. Married guy. Whole office has been talking about it. I stared at him for a long moment, trying to gauge if he was just messing with me. You're serious? I asked. Dead serious. Been going on a while, too. At least a year from what I've heard. Everyone in that industry gossips, and her name, well, let's just say it comes up a lot. I leaned back, letting out a bitter laugh. Unbelievable. And here, I thought she just got bored of me. Larry gave me a look. She thought she was being slick, Ben. But look at you now. You've got the house. You've got her paying you. She'd torch her own life. He was right. That's the part that makes this so perfect. I never had to expose her affair or fight dirty or do anything vindictive. I just took her up on her offered divorce and made sure I got what I was legally entitled to. She thought she was being smart by asking for the divorce instead of me agreeing to the divorce and filing myself. But all she really did was hand me the perfect opportunity to destroy her financially while she destroyed herself in every other way. Sometimes life has a funny way of working out exactly the way it should. My only regret is that I was married to someone capable of this level of selfishness and stupidity for 14 years. But hey, at least now I'm getting paid for it. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.